Hello, welcome to if statements. Today we're going to be looking at the if statement, which is the first control structure that we'll be looking at. There are many variations to the if statement. The variations we'll be going over today include the if else, the extended if else, and the nested if statement. Now for this lecture, I'm going to show you the syntax for these different statements in Dr. Java itself instead of showing you a PowerPoint. So let's go to Dr. Java. So here we are at Dr. Java. I haven't started writing. I've just saved this file as test.java. So let's start off by putting a comment with the file name. Next, I'm going to put the public keyword, the class keyword as I declare the class, and I put down test. Next, I put my brace over here and I continue working. Now it's time to declare the main method. So it's public static void main string args. And then I put my next brace over here. And as you can see, everything's indenting. So the first statement we're going to be looking at is the if statement. So this is the syntax of the if statement. So you have if condition, then some body is executed. So this is not correct syntax right now, but what I'm trying to show you is, so this is the syntax for an if statement. And if the condition, a condition is a Boolean expression that returns true or false. So if the condition is true, the statements over here in the body will be executed. But if the condition is not true, then this entire body is skipped and the computer continues going down from here and interpreting the next statements. So that's why it's a conditional, it's a control structure because it's conditional. There's a condition, and if the condition isn't true, then this won't work. So let me show you an example. Let's say we have an integer x and it's equal to 2. Let's say that. And now we want to use an if statement. So we'll put if x equals 2. Let's say we do that. If x equals 2, then we put our brace, and inside of the body we say system.out.println x is 2. Let's put that. And now that's it. We got it. We put our next brace over here. We put a brace to close the main method, and we put a brace to close the test method. Now I'm going to save the program. I'm going to compile the program. And then last but not least, I'm going to run the program. So as you can see, it prints out x is equal to 2. Because this condition over here of whether x is equal to 2 came out to be true, that's why this was executed. So now let's say that we make x equal to 3. Let's say we make it a 3. Let's save, compile, and let's run. This time it shouldn't print anything out. As you can see, it didn't print anything out at all. And the reason it didn't print anything out is because this condition over here was not true. This condition came out as false because x was actually 3. And because this condition was false, the entire body over here was just skipped by the computer because this condition was false. So if true, then this is run. But if false, then this is ignored. Next, let's take a look at the if-else statement. So there's often a situation just like this one where if x is not equal to 2, I want to tell the user that, your number x is not 2. So what I would do here is, if it's an if-else statement, after the if block completes, I'll put else, and then I'll put braces again, and I'll put system.out.println x is not 2. So in this case, as you can see, what's happening is this is a new type of statement that we're working on, the if-else statement, and we're saying that if this condition is true, you execute this. But if this is false, instead or else, you execute this. Now keep in mind that both of these statements cannot be executed. Only one body can be executed. This is either true or this is false. If it's true, this is executed. But if it's false, this is executed. So right now, x is equal to 3. So if we do this, it should print out x is not equal to 2. So let's see if that happens. Let's compile and let's run. So as you can see, it printed out x is not equal to 2. But let's say we were to change this to 2. Let's say we were to change this to 2. And let's compile again. Now it should print out x is equal to 2 because this condition is coming out to be true. And as you can see, it says x is 2. So that clearly you can see that if the condition is true, then the first body is printed out, or the first statement. And if the condition is false, it goes to the else block, and then it prints out the second statement. Next, let's take a look at the extended if-else statement. So there's often a situation where, let's say there's multiple conditions you want to check for, and then you finally want to go to the else block. So let's say I want to have multiple more if statements over here before I go to the else block. So then you can use a keyword called else if. Now what else if does is that you can state another condition like x equals 3. And then you put your braces like you have for every single block so far. You put your braces to open it up, you get an automatic indent, and then let's say we want to print out x is 3. So now what this is doing is, once I finish typing this up, we'll look at the logic. So what this is doing now is, it's doing something very, very interesting. So what's happening now is, we know that x is equal to 2, so what the computer does is, first it checks, is x equal to 2? And in this case, yes it is, that's awesome. So x is equal to 2, that comes out to be true, so it automatically executes this and skips the rest of this. It skips everything until the else block is completed. It skips this because once one condition is true, it doesn't check the rest of them. But let's say that this is x is equal to 3. Now in this case, the computer first checks if x equals to 2, which comes out to be false. So it skips this statement. Next, it checks if x is equal to 3 using the else if keywords to add on more if conditions. So it checks if x is equal to 3. And it finds that x is equal to 3. So then it executes this and it skips the else and it's done. Now let's say that x is equal to 4. If x is equal to 4, then what happens is, first the computer checks if x is equal to 2, which comes out to be false, so it skips this. Next, it checks if x is equal to 3, which comes out to be false, so it skips this. And now, because there aren't any other conditions to check for, it automatically goes to the else block and it prints out this. So if you want to check, let's compile and let's run. It should print out x is not 2. And in this case, we would update it to say x is not 2 or 3 because we've checked if it's 2 or 3 and both of them came out to be false. Now, the last type of if statement that we'll be looking at is the nested if statement. So now, the nested if statement is interesting. So let's take a look at it. So I'm going to show you the syntax of it first, and then I'm going to show you an example using it. So let's look. Let's see. This is the syntax for it. If condition, then inside of this if condition, and then inside of this you have a statement that is executed. Okay, so this is the nested if statement. Now why is it called a nested? Because we have our first condition, right? We have our first condition, which is if any condition right over here. And if this is true, then it executes this body of the program, but of the statement. But if if statement is not true, then it automatically skips all of this. So now let's say that this condition came out to be true. Now next what you would be looking at is this. Once you come in, we have another if statement inside of an if statement. That's why it's called a nested if statement, because one if statement is placed inside of the other. So in this case, if this condition is true as well, then this statement is executed. So let's say that this statement is true, but this statement is false. This condition is false. Then the statement is not executed because this needs to be true and this needs to be true. And vice versa, if this is false and this is true, then what happens is once the computer finds that this condition is false, it doesn't even look at this. It doesn't matter if it's true, false, or anything. The computer won't even pay attention to it. Once it knows that it's false, it completely ignores this entire part. Now another way to rewrite this in a more simple way, because nested loops can be confusing. You're placing one statement or a loop inside of another. So what I like to do is, if I like to use a logical operator. So let's say that this is condition 1 and that this is condition 2. So if condition 1 and condition 2. So if you remember, the and is a logical operator that we use, and we need to make sure that both, in a complex condition, we need to make sure that both conditions are true. Only if both conditions are true will this entire complex condition evaluate to true. So both this and this needs to be true, and then what we can set it to be is that this statement will be executed. Now this is both of these, this and this are both the same thing. They have the same, both of them require this and this to be true for this statement to be run, and this requires both this and this to be true for this statement to run. Both are the same, but this is a nested if statement, which is a little bit more complicated, and this is using one of the logical operators that we've learned about, and it makes life a lot more clearer because we know that this has to be true and this has to be true. Now let's take a look at an example. So let's say we have int x equals 3, and sorry, put a minus there, int x equals 3 and int y equals 4. Now what we want to do is I forgot a semicolon there. We want to put if x equals 3, and we want to put our logical operator conditional and y equals 4. Then let's see, then what do we want to do? We want to print out, hooray, let's say we want to print out hi. Let's print out hi. So right here we would print out hi, and there we go. So this is our statement. So what we're saying is, if x is equal to 3 and which means and y is equal to 4, it can't be either or, it needs to be both. Both need to be true, then the system will output hi. But if even one of them is false, the system will not output hi. So let's compile and run to see first if it's working. So yeah, you can see it prints out hi. Now let's change this to 4 because x wants to be like 4. Let's compile again, and now we shouldn't get anything printed out because not both conditions are satisfied. And this is exactly what happens. Nothing is printed out because while y is equal to 4, x is not equal to 3 in this case. So that leads to this complex condition evaluating as false. Now you could literally do the same thing with the nested if statements, but I feel that using this logical operator is a much easier and more efficient route. So this lecture was all about if statements, and we saw the different if statements. We saw the classic if statement where there's no else. Then we saw the if else statement, which is if the condition is true, then the body is executed, and if the condition is not true, then the else body is executed. We saw the extended if else statement, which adds the else if, so you can test for multiple conditions. And then we just looked at the nested if statement, which contains an if statement inside of another, and we found a better alternative to that to be using this logical operator. And that's all for this lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. There was a lot of important things covered about the if statement, which is a prominent part of Java, and as are all control structures.